What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another Star Citizen video. It's been a while since I've made a Star Citizen video. It's mainly because I need a break from the verse, and I want to take the time to expand the channel into other areas, like other games and stuff like that. Right now I've been focusing on Monster Hunter. So if you guys are interested in Monster Hunter, go check out some of my stream VODs and a couple of videos I've done on Monster Hunter. I've only done two, but yeah, I just wanted to do a quick little thing really quick. And I'll be honest with you, this is just reacting to one of AvengerOne's more recent videos about the distortion meta in Star Citizen, and honestly why it pisses me off, to be honest with you. The distortion meta is part of the reason. It's a small part of why I'm taking a break from Star Citizen right now. There's a lot of reasons why I'm taking a break from Star Citizen right now, and mainly it's because I'm just bored. The only way I have fun is right now is looking for PvP fights, and then it comes to people running almost all distortions on F8s, essentially. That just pissed me off. And I'm not saying I'm a great pilot. I'm average at best, and I will always say that. I don't really do anything to try to improve myself. I mean, I get better a little bit, but I don't do anything to improve myself. The big thing for me is that I try to go into a fight and I'm shut down almost immediately, and that's just not fun. That's not fun gameplay for me. Like I'm just shut down and killed almost immediately because in that first pass, distortion just goes done, shield's gone, gun's gone. It's just it's a pain in the ass. So I wanted to kind of talk and give my thoughts. Now granted, AvengerOne is more versed, obviously a lot more versed in the PvP area than I am, so he's going to be able to bring some more light to, on the situation than me. But I wanted to give my thoughts on it because I do like dabbling in the PvP. I like having fun with PvP. Even when I die, I'm like, you know what, that was a good fight. I had fun, and that's where it all comes down to. You just you don't need to be a sweat all the damn time. You don't need to be the best, and people need to understand that. You don't need to be the best to have fun. But he has more points than I do. So I just wanted to react to AvengerOne's video really quick and kind of give some points. And hopefully I know what the hell I'm talking about, because who knows. I'm going to turn that down on my end really quick.
Welcome back, everyone, to another video.
There's AvengerOne's mug.
Distortion meta and how it's affecting the game in a positive and a negative way. We're going to go into detail as to understanding why distortion meta is the way it is, why it's the best loadout, and some steps to improve distortion meta as master modes gets developed. Notice that these examples will be from the live build of the game, but understand that time to disable and time to kill numbers will obviously change with master modes. The intention here is to explain and educate the general Star Citizen population, and also perhaps CIG itself, to see what's actually happening right now in the PvP communities in the Star Citizen gameplay that we currently have, so they can better address the future of the game and better address the weapon metas and understand how to improve the gameplay as master modes develops. So let's dive in to why distortion meta is the best. Notice how that arrow didn't last very long, and the question is, well, why not? Obviously, there are lots of nuances to combat. Does he have a good merge? Is he guns on? But the reality between why that arrow lost that initial fight and why this Gladius will lose his is because distortion weapons turn off enemy guns faster than it takes to kill them.
And that's one of my biggest gripes about it. Don't get me wrong, I want distortions to be powerful, for all the would-be pirates out there. They give a little bit of an edge, try to get shields down a little bit faster, and hopefully, for pirating, yeah, we'll go off the pirating, getting shields down a little bit quicker, and then keeping shields down, and hopefully disabling your target so you can, steal their shit. But right now, like, even people are using Distortions and Arena Commander, and like any kind of PvP situation right now. It just like, if you're not running with a group, if you're doing a 1v1 or 1v whatever, it's not fun at all because of this. And he'll talk more about it.
The time to disable is faster than the time to kill. Why does this matter? Well, pretty simply put, if I can turn off your weapons in half the time, I've pretty much won the fight. If you are unable to fire back, can you kill me?
No.
The answer is obviously no.
No.
If you can't get your shields back, are you more vulnerable than me? The answer is yes. So if I can disable your shield recharge and your weapons in half the time with half the bullets, I now turn the fight from an actual fight into a chase. Because as soon as I take away your ability to return fire to me, the fight is mine. And this lies the issue with distortions. If you are in the persistent universe and you are not running a mixed distortion laser setup, you are going to fall victim to the person who does. If I'm in an arrow or a hornet and I bring a mixed laser distortion loadout, I'm going to disable your guns in half the time and thus winning the fight. At that point, it's just a matter of chasing down the opposition and engaging when I have time. Notice how this arrow here is not able to...
And that's where my biggest issue is. I want to fight. I don't want to run. When it comes down to, because on an arrow, because arrow is one of my favorites right now, there is not enough guns or firepower on the arrow for me to justify running a mixed loadout. Because when I run a mixed loadout, let's say I use 2 distortions, 2 lasers, I feel like I'm sacrificing too much true DPS where I do not feel like I'm doing enough damage. Regardless with how strong distortions are or not, I feel like I am not doing much. Same with the saber. And now don't get me wrong, I know what people say, saber, no dogfight, no bueno. I understand that, but I like dogfighting in the saber. I'm very comfortable in the saber. Not saying I'm the best, but I'm very comfortable in it, and I've won more fights in the saber than I have in anything else. And I cannot justify sacrificing 2 of my guns that have true DPS that can kill my target to swap them out for 2 distortions where all they do is shut down and take shields down. And don't get me wrong, I'm also not the most accurate person in the world, so that also has an area or that plays a factor in it. Don't get me wrong, but when you have 4 or less guns on your ship, you're sacrificing too much true DPS to kill your target, in my opinion, just to run this meta PvP distortion loadout, which meta is boring. And the way distortions work right now makes the fights boring because it's not a fight. It's letting somebody bully you, or you're doing the bullying in itself, and that's all it is. It's not fun. And that's my biggest point I'm trying to drive right now is fun factor. Not most effective, not best loadout or anything. Is the fun factor. Is the fun factor really there? Don't get me wrong, it's hilarious when you shut somebody down and they're just like, oh, they're falling, but that only gives you so much. And when you're really guns to guns, you're just fighting, trying to get them, trying to get this guy killed before he kills you, and you're really just, that is where the excitement is. And when you're distorted and guns are shut down and shields are shut down in seconds, you don't get that adrenaline. You don't get that, like, oh, that doesn't feel like a good fight.
To fire, even though right now he's nose on, because halfway through that fight I applied enough distortion damage to disable his ability to return fire. Unfortunately, that arrow pilot didn't notice in time what was really going on, because
that's another
the
thing.
Next turn ended him.
That's another thing, because you can get in the first turn, you know, in that first pass or that merge, you go in, guns on. By the time you're done with that first merge or that first pass, you've already let go of the trigger. You don't know your guns are shut down, right? Or your capacitors have already run out. So that you get to that next merge, yeah, your shields are down, but you want to commit a little bit and you want to apply some damage. You pull that trigger, nothing happens. That is the scariest thing in the world, especially in a PvP fight, especially when you're outnumbered. It is the scariest thing in the world because all you can do is try to get out of this guy's nose and try to run away, and that is it. And for somebody like me who wants to stay in that fight, that pretty much ends the whole thing for me. And I'm just like, man, this is so dumb.
So, how does this affect the larger Star Citizen gameplay? And I think the issue lies with the time to disable. Think of it this way.
I agree.
If I'm able to take away your ability to return fire faster than I can kill you, it leads to two things. One, I'm going to kill you anyway. It's just going to take slightly longer.
Yeah.
But the fight's already been won. It's just basically a matter of ceremony at that point. Two, if I take away your guns, your engines, your weapons, and that kind of stuff, I leave you victim to basically sitting in space, unable to defend yourself. And if I play my cards correctly, I'm going to be able to engage much larger ships with much thicker armor and shields and do the same thing. If I'm engaging a Redeemer or a Hammerhead, for example, if I drop the shields with only a few fighters and then hit you with enough distortion, which again is going to disable you in about 1/5 the amount of time it takes to kill a Hammerhead, for example, once the Hammerhead's shields down and fully disabled, it cannot shoot back, it cannot maneuver, it cannot warp away. All it can do is stand there and watch as enemy ships float around it and decide what they want to do with it. Either they're going to shoot it when it's defenseless and not moving, or they're going to board it and take the ship. The choice is up to the enemy because you no longer can participate in the fight. You can no longer defend yourself.
Exactly. Like I said, it's great for pirates. Don't get me wrong. You know, they want to make their money. They want to make their booty. You know, it's great for pirating. But when you're in like a fighter versus fighter dogfight, because I've been wanting to do like this fleet battle for a while with Ragtag. Basically my Discord versus Ragtag, and Ragtag's a great group of guys. I don't want to do it because of the distortion meta. Don't get me wrong. I could put in a rule there and say no distortions, but I want as much variety in ship loadouts as possible when I want to do this, because honestly, if everybody's running lasers, yeah, don't get me wrong, there's still some good fights there, but I like seeing variety, different missile loadouts. I want to see people running ballistics. I want to see basically anything at people's disposal. And with distortions being as powerful as they are now, I honestly think that's going to be very one-sided. If, like, let's say my side, you're like, oh, I'm using ballistics, I'm using lasers, and we don't really have a whole lot of distortions. And then let's say Ragtag goes on and is running a whole bunch of distortions. The fight for Ragtag's already won, like that, because of how powerful they are.
Take this Gladius, for example. This Gladius was able to get close up to us, try to turn around my turn rate. But again, halfway through that fight, I disallow him. I take his ability to return fire away halfway through that fight. I have half the target time that I need to win the fight, which allows me to win the fight with half the amount of target time.
With him bringing up the half amount of target time, I also want to point out that it kind of takes away some of the skill in some of these fights, because you only have to have half the amount of target time. When you only need to take half the time to focus your target with distortions, you're spending less time being accurate, in my opinion. If you can get enough in the first pass, like I said, the fight's already won for you, and I that takes away some of the skill. Don't get me, like I said, I am not a good PvP pilot. I don't have enough light fighter stick time I almost refuse to touch light fighters aside from the arrow right now, and that's relatively new. I'm I'm very, very average. I want to say I'm a little bit better than the average pilot in the PU, but you put me in arena commander, I'm getting slaughtered. But I still want to see the skill there, if that makes any sense.
This, in my opinion, is a problem. I want skill-based gameplay in Star Citizen.
Right
I think
there.
So does many
Right
of the people
there.
in the PvP community. But as of right now, if you don't have distortions, you are simply behind the meta, because the time to disable is half the time to kill.
And metas, this is a hot take, and I'm going to die on this hill. Metas can ruin games. You always have Call of Duty, for example, meta guns, meta loadouts in your guns, or meta setups in your guns, and it creates the same fight every time. 9 times out of 10. Warzone, especially when I played Warzone back in the day, it was like, I forgot what guns it was. I forgot what the gun was, but you use like monolithic suppressor, this barrel, this mag, whatever, zero recoil, and every single person used that gun. It created the same fight every time, and it makes it boring and not enjoying to play. And that's where I'm going to get to Star Citizen, when everybody's running arrows. Or right now, I cannot stand the Hornet because of the acceleration that it has. Everybody's running distortion loadouts. It's basically, if you were not running what everybody else is running, you put yourself at such a severe disadvantage that you're never going to win, ever. Don't get me wrong, I have come out on top when I'm running my saber or something, but if it's just me by myself and I come up against a pilot who's a little bit better than me or around the same skill level to me, and they're running a Hornet with the meta distortion mix loadout or whatever, and I'm running my saber, the only advantage I have is running task force, and the task force don't track nearly as much as they nearly as well as they did in previous patches. So all I can really do is try to keep a distance, but with the acceleration on the Hornet, I can't keep that distance at all. So you're always running into Hornets and F8s right now, and like it's like I said, it's the same fight every time.
What are some examples? What are some games where distortion gameplay is done, but done to a different degree? I think games like Star Wars Squadrons did their Ion system, which is similar to, Star Citizen's distortion, in a different way that I feel like worked really, really well. They gave distortions in their game, or ion guns in their game, a role. Ion guns would disable shields almost instantly, but the actual time to disable was a little bit longer than the time to kill, thus adding team gameplay into effect. If two ships ganged up on one, and one attacking ship had distortions or ion guns, he'd be able to strip the shields, and the second pilot coming in would be able to use his standard lasers to do direct damage to the ship's hull, causing the ship to lose the fight much quicker than if he were to either use just standard lasers or purely ion guns.
Yeah.
The truth is, distortions don't really know what they want to be right now.
No, they don't.
And I can't tell whether or not it's just CIG having an incomplete system, or the idea behind distortions maybe wasn't really fully fleshed out. The point is, again, look at this fight, for example. We're engaging a Hornet with mostly distortion guns. So he's running what I would consider the ultimate meta Hornet setup. He's got 4 distortion guns, which means his time to disable is the fastest. And he's got 2 standard size 3 Panthers on his wingtips, which is plenty to kill a ship that's fully disabled. But the truth is, as you can see here, it just ends up prolonging and dragging fights on for quite a long time. It's not a really great feeling. If you play a game and you're and you have to disengage the opponent time and time and time again because you've lost the ability to fight back, it makes the gameplay feel a little, well, for lack of a better word,
boring,
frustrating.
Okay, that's a good word.
Take this example again. We've now reset for a second time against this enemy Hornet, and we're going to reset a few more times before the end of this fight. But this is a good example of a fight being unable to resolve. If I can't resolve the fight, which means I can't either get to a death or I get shot down, If I can't resolve the fight within a meaningful amount of time, it just makes the gameplay feel boring, frustrating, and, well, not really exciting. I like intense gameplay. I think intense gameplay leads to a much better experience. And as we can see here, again, here's the third reset, because
he has said everything I have said. Everything. And don't get me wrong, in better words than I did. But he's basically saying, he's literally stealing the words out of my mouth. And I'm glad that AvengerOne, one of the most well-known PvP pilots in Star Citizen, has the same thoughts as I do on this. As him and I are on two different spectrums. You got ace pilot, average dude that likes fighting every so often, but also just enjoys playing the game in general, right? What basically you call the PvP sweat lord. I'll take that. I'll say that, versus what some people would call a Bob, which I also don't like that term. But I like my PvP, but I like doing everything. The fact that somebody from this level is saying let me rephrase. Somebody from the top level is saying same thing as somebody from this level speaks volumes. And something needs to change.
We've taken his ability to fire back away, so he has no choice but to disengage, wait for his shields and weapons to come back, and return to the fight. There's lots of ways to solve this problem. We can decrease the amount of time it takes to get the recharge back. We could disable guns only for a few seconds, which means I just extend the turn for a little bit and I'm back into the fight. This can also work just the same in master modes. There's not really a huge difference between the meta of guns here and the meta of guns that maybe will be in master modes. If master modes has a shorter time to disable than time to kill, the exact same problem that we're seeing here will be had in master modes. In fact, the problem might even be worse in master modes because the application of damage is higher. And so even at longer ranges, if I saturate the zone with enough damage or enough distortion, all it takes is a few shots to stop my shields from coming back and my guns from recharging to be able to meaningfully affect any kind of change. And it makes fights drag on forever. Mm-hmm. Once again, as soon as the shields come down and any meaningful amount of damage is about to be applied to me, I have no choice but to leave the fight, because I can't stick into a fight if I don't have my guns. There is a way to make this better. There is a way to make this experience less frustrating, and that's to stop full disabling of any components and systems until the ship is either fully disabled or destroyed. If I lose my guns before the fight's over, the fight's over. It's that simple. If Distortion Meta changes so that I'm either fully functional the entire fight, right up until the point where I'm fully disabled, which is either at the same time or relatively lower or higher, like a longer time, then it would be the time to kill, it'll lead to better gameplay. Think of it this way. If I have distortions and I can disable larger vessels with much heavier armor, I don't need to bring heavy weapon systems. I don't need to bring bombers. I don't need to bring better weapon systems or heavier guns, because all I need to do is disable you and then slowly chew on you for the better part of 10 minutes or whatever is necessary. It allows ships that are not designed for certain categories of fighting to exist and perform in areas of combat that they necessarily shouldn't be performing in. If I want to disable that ship, specifically to board it, I should still have that option.
Yes.
But if I've won the battle because I have shorter time to kill weapons, and then I switch to distortions and I saturate the enemy ship with distortions and disable it strictly for the purpose of boarding it, that's a different story. But the time to disable should always be slightly longer than the time to kill, because the time to disable, in my opinion, is just making gameplay more frustrating. You need to have fights resolve. Just like this fight here. I've lost my ability to fire back. I cannot resolve the fight, and so I return to a defensive posture. I defensively fly away, and I wait for my shields and guns to come back. The enemy pilot has done that multiple times to me as well. As you can see here, this fight has failed to resolve for the last 10 minutes. And it's not really exciting gameplay. It's kind of like being put in a situation where you continuously have to keep throwing the ball back to your partner until you can get a shot. It just makes things boring.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And that's kind of what the distortion meta is doing. We're doing the same thing over and over again, trying to fight, trying to re-engage, try to reset the fight constantly and re-engaging, hoping to expect different results, and it's not happening because of the distortions. AvengerOne's getting shut down, he's shutting down the other player, and it's different. It's the same results every time. Maybe not on the same side, but it's still the same result every time. They constantly have to reset.
Look, distortion meta is always going to be part of the game, but I think we can get to a place and we can all agree that if fights aren't resolving, that's probably an issue with the system's core gameplay rather than the guns themselves. The choice has to be made that is time to disable going to be shorter than time to kill. My position is to advocate for shorter time to kill and longer time to disable for many reasons, like you've heard me say.
I can agree with them.
I think if you're going to disable a ship, it's because your intention is to board that ship, which means you've probably won the overall battle. Either make it so that time to disable is the same as time to kill, but do not take away the ability of that ship being distortioned for its ability to fight back away, because then if you take the guns and shields away from a ship before the ship is disabled, the fight is ended as soon as the ability for the enemy is taken away for him to actually respond and defend himself.
100%.
It's like getting into a gunfight, but as soon as the guy shoots at you, you no longer have access to using your firearm. And in a gunfight, that would be certain death. It's the same thing in Star Citizen.
Yep.
If you stop the ability for someone to defend themselves, they cannot win the fight, period, which means the fight is over. So, hopefully this was a better explanation, guys, as to why distortion meta is the way that it is. Understand that in the persistent universe, if you do not have mixed loadout weapons and you're going against someone who does, disengage the fight and get yourself mixed loadout weapons. Because the person who does bring mixed loadouts to the fight is going to win the fight regardless of whether or not you bring the right set of guns.
So I'm going to put my closing thoughts here. He's still got about 3 minutes into the video, and I'm probably actually going to edit this down since it's about a half an hour long on my end. But we shouldn't have to do that. If you're running to a guy who's running mixed distortions and you are not, you should not have to basically swap your loadout, swap your preferred loadout, whether you're using ballistics. Ballistics might be a little bit better, but you shouldn't, if you're running ballistics or full lasers or whatever, you shouldn't have to swap your loadout just to fit the meta. You really shouldn't. Yeah, don't get me wrong, there's always going to be a meta in the game, but the meta shouldn't be the end all be all every time. And right now, since I started playing Star Citizen, since I started getting into the PvP side of Star Citizen, that has been the case. If you're not running the end all be all, 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose. I lose most of my fights. Not saying I'm pissed about that. I don't care if I lose, as long as I'm having fun. But when you're running an end all be all loadout, which meta should not be, it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. It's boring, and it makes people, especially people who really want PvP, it makes people not want to either play the game or makes people want to do something different completely. Hence part of the reason why I'm taking a step back from Star Citizen, because of that, I'm not having fun. And if right now, if PvP is the only thing I'm finding fun, and that we run into the issue where I'm not having fun because I'm just getting distorted all the time, that becomes a problem. And right now, I don't like seeing that. So I agree with AvengerOne, where the distortion time or the shutdown time should be longer than the time to kill. even things out a little bit, but still, they still should be effective if you are planning to board an enemy vessel or hold an enemy vessel hostage. I actually completely 100% agree with him on that. And honestly, I think he has a good grasp and a good idea of what that should be. So, but I'm going to wrap this up there. I just wanted to give my thoughts on this because obviously I'm on a different spectrum than he is. Maybe some people who don't do a whole lot of PvP might not have even seen this video and kind of getting a little upset about distortions. And I feel like people who are on that side of Star Citizen watch me more than they watch AvengerOne. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not trying to fucking toot my own horn or anything, but those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Let's discuss it a little bit. I plan on revisiting this topic a little bit if nothing doesn't change, with more people's opinions, almost kind of like a podcast style kind of video. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I'll see you guys in the next video around the verse. Alrighty, have a good one.